if I go to a trash bin that is full of trash, right, and I start throwing soap at it, it's not going to change the fact that it's a trash bin full of trash. In order for me to be able to have a clean trash bin, I would need to remove all the trash. Then I would have to clean it, right? And then I would have to maintain it that way.
What's going on, everybody? Welcome to another podcast, and I'm here with a very good friend. But before I introduce this very good friend of mine, Axe Podcast is sponsored by Creative Currency. And I always forget to say that. So please, whenever you have an opportunity, share, subscribe, like the page, because it really benefits those who are listening and also benefits us to share the gospel. And of course, what Axe Podcast is about is bringing entrepreneurs to share their story, their experience, and also how are they impacting their community with their business. So today, good friend of mine, Hector.
Say my last name.
No.
Maradiaga.
Maradiaga.
Oh, come on.
I can never say his last name, man. He gets mad at me. Bro, it took me 3 months to learn my wife's name. 3 months.
And how long were you with your wife?
Well, I've been with my wife for 25 years.
No, but...
Oh, 3 months. I said 3 months.
So, okay. I've known you for like 17 years.
Oh, wow. This is going to get personal, guys. This is going to get really personal.
I've known you for almost more than half my life.
Wow. Damn, that's right.
Yeah.
What year was it?
Dude, I had just turned 18.
Wow. You made me feel really old right now. That's amazing.
Yeah, because I was a freshman in college.
Long way, buddy.
Yeah.
Long way, man.
Yeah.
A lot of tears, a lot of laughter.
Yeah. A lot of tears, a lot of laughter, a lot of hummus.
Yes.
A lot of hummus. So if you guys don't know, right, when we do fellowship for Bible studies, hummus was a staple. So we definitely took down a lot of hummus.
You know what? That's so crazy because the other day I went to Publix and I looked at the hummus and I was like, I remember a period of my time that we used to buy this thing every week.
Dude, we used to take down 2 tubs.
Yeah,
of hummus.
Man.
And then Emanuela used to get the one with the red pepper, the
yes.
red pepper, and then she'd get one without
buy
it.
one, get one free. What is it? Buy one, get one free?
Yeah.
That was the Publix thing, man.
Yeah,
I remember that. That's crazy. I was thinking about that the other day. Wow, that's amazing. But yeah, we have you on, and this is not the first time you're on the podcast. And we had an issue with the first episode that we recorded.
Yeah.
But I really feel like now is the moment to share what is happening in your life today, and especially how you're going to impact the world and the community that you're working with right now. So I'm super excited for you to kind of share that. But yeah, man.
Well, it's God's timing is perfect. That's something that we can't deny.
That's right.
God is 100% perfect. Timing is 100% perfect, even if we like it or don't like it.
That's right.
You have to learn how to accept that and surrender to that. So I know I was like, dude, what happened? We recorded for 2 hours.
Yeah.
What happened? And obviously there was an issue or whatever, but it all works out, because we actually recorded that podcast, dude, almost exactly a year ago.
No way.
Yeah, it was probably like March, April.
Yeah,
so it was almost a year ago.
Damn, time flies, man.
But it was good because we were in a transitionary period.
That's right.
With the business, and there's a lot of stuff going on. So a lot of the stuff that where we are right now is what we're planning in this transition. So it's kind of, it would have been cool to see that, but it's also cool to see where we're at now.
Yeah. So let me ask you this. What's the industry? So people can understand, what is the industry you're in? If someone was to define it, what industry are you in?
Well, I'm in the longevity industry, right?
Okay.
So, but longevity is kind of like more of a catchy term nowadays. Like before it was called health and wellness, and it was called biohacking, and then, and way before we really pushed the word wellness, it was really fitness, right? Um, in essence, I'm kind of, if I really think about it, right, we're kind of the bridge that gaps all these different terms and worlds, right? Because they are like micro industries within the industry of health, let's say, right?
Right.
So we're kind of like the bridge that bridges all these things together, and we do it through data, right? So I would say, if I was talking to an investor, I say, hey, we're in the health and longevity space.
Yeah, that's good. So, there's always I always like to ask the question, the why, right? What is it that takes you to the point where you wake up in the morning and it just drives you to wanting to build what you're building right now? Like, what is your why? Why do you like helping people when it comes to their health? What is it?
Well, I always go back to the parable of talents, right? And it's because God gave me a gift, right? And it's my job to multiply the talents, right? And that's the level of responsibility I feel. So it's not just because like I'm passionate about it or whatever. Like I learned to be passionate about it early in my career, but I knew like the way I see the human body, right? And the way I understand it, the way I'm able to explain it. And like it almost feels like, what's that show? The doctor show that he's like autistic.
Oh yeah, man, I
and
love
like
it.
He he sees like everything.
Yeah,
like I love that show because that's exactly like literally like they couldn't have done it better. That's exactly how I see the body.
It's funny because it was, that series was in my mind. Now I'm trying to remember the name.
Yeah. So and since I was a kid, right? Like when I played like Little League football, I have one of my friends. Like I had lunch with him a while back, and he was just telling me, he's like, dude, it's crazy that this is what you do. Because when we were little and we were playing football, right, you were like, oh, you need to like move this muscle, stretch it. So I was like, I think I was maybe 12, 13, 13 maybe. So I wasn't that little, but when he was telling me the story, and I'd be like, hey, you need to like stretch this way, you need to do this way, and I was always really interested. And then a couple of years back, I found my leadership journal from my freshman year in high school, and it said like, what is it? Like one of the first entries in this leadership journal was like, what do you want to do when you get older? Like career questions. And I said, and I wrote, I want to help athletes, extreme sport athletes, and regular people stay healthy for a long time. That was like what I wrote, right? And then my sophomore year, I was in this like special Microsoft certification class, and halfway through, it was like this Microsoft had this thing where like you had to like, part of the Microsoft curriculum, you had to like look at like careers, right? And how like technology goes with career. And I was like, oh, I want to be, this is what I want to do. So I started looking it up on Google, and all I found was like the strength coaches or personal trainers. And I saw like the annual salary, and the annual salary was like $24,000 a year. And I'm like, I want nice things in life. So I chose a different like path in the beginning. But I mean, well, in my mind, I said, okay, I'm not going to do this anymore. I'm going to do something else. But that's really since I was a kid. And then when I was in high school, like I had the sports medicine route, and I didn't. And like all the testing I did for that was like, it honestly felt like I was like doing like 1 + 1 = 2,
Wow.
2 + 2 = 4. Like it just came really easy to me. And then I would have like teachers and counselors and people tell me, it's like, oh, you should become a doctor. It was like so easy for me. Like that, I didn't want to become a doctor. Like that didn't attract me. I was like, I don't know how becoming a doctor, I didn't see it in my head, like how becoming a doctor was going to put me in position to, obviously now as I'm older, I'm like, oh, maybe,
Yeah.
But because I could have been an orthopedic surgeon. I could have done a couple different things, right? And we have colleagues that are friends that, didn't do the orthopedic route or the sports medicine route, but they still help athletes. So there's still a pathway there, but I wasn't exposed to it, right? And then I got discouraged when I was like, okay, the only pathway I saw was like, you're getting paid peanuts, and I want nice things. So,
Right.
you know, I want a
Right.
nice house. I wanted a nice car,
Mm.
you know, and, but yeah, so for me, then when I made that transition in college, so I went and studied electrical engineering, and then I switched over to physiology. And the reason I tell everybody, the reason I wanted to make that switch was it was a 2008, you know, crash. Everything was terrible. My father was a
Oh, that's
contractor.
right. Yeah.
So like the idea was that, you know, I study electrical engineering, you know, he's an electrical contractor. And then I go and I get my PE license, which is professional engineering license. I get my PE license and added to my dad's company. And then now we have the engineering side, we have the construction side, right? And then like we just continue growing the family business that way. But when the crash happened and I saw the bad side of like entrepreneurship, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I knew I always wanted to be an entrepreneur, right? Growing up, you know, I used to sell candy, do all these things.
Right.
Um, and when I saw that and I experienced it firsthand with my father, because I was like my dad's right hand.
Mm-hmm. Because your father owned businesses too.
Yeah, he was.
Kinda
You know,
gotta.
yeah, and when I saw that, and we lost like everything, dude. Right? And like, I remember thinking to myself, I was like, if I have to go through this,
Mm.
because and I said to myself, I'm gonna have to go through this. Not if, I'm gonna go through this. And when I go through this, you know, what's gonna keep me consistent? I go, I need to do something I love, something that I really truly want to do. And that's when I made the transition, and a couple of years later, you know, I jumped ship. You know, it's funny because all the things that you would consider to be bad happened to somebody, right?
Right.
It was the best thing that could happen to me, right? Because when it was time for me to really make a transition into my career, I was still working somewhere. I'm not going to mention where and what industry. I
Mm-hmm.
think you remember.
Yeah.
And then um, they ended up letting me go, right? Which I thought it was wrong. It wasn't the right reason. I think there's a couple clashes there, and they were able to fake fake it for me to like get out. Which the state ended up suing this place, and then we
Mm-hmm.
ended up settling, and you know I got paid or whatnot. But if that didn't happen, I would have waited to make the transition. I would have tried to still stay within that same organization,
Mm.
but with what I did, right?
Right.
And if I did that, honestly, like I probably would have only made like I don't even think I would have made a quarter of what I've made so far.
Wow.
Not even a quarter, right? I'm
Yeah.
talking about like if I were to time it 11 years from then to now, I don't think I would have made a
Mhm.
quarter of what we've done here. So,
Yeah.
it was the best thing that happened to me, and it was good, and everything just came easy to me, right? It just, I would tell my friends, I was like, is it like, am I going crazy? Like, is this like, but like, why is this so easy for me? And then when I would have colleagues and I'd be like, oh, you know, 1 + 1 = 2. This is how we would do it.
So what you're saying, what came easy, you're talking about the retaining the information and understanding.
retaining the information, understanding the information, and then connecting the dots.
Right.
Right? Because things with human physiology, right? There's so many different systems in the human body, and then the bad thing of what Western medicine has done, and then like what the way they teach us is very segmented, right? So like one of my mentors, he says, biology separates everything, right?
Mm.
But then ecology puts everything together. So and the thing is, the way I saw it was I saw it from like an ecological point of view, where it's like, okay, our human body, this vehicle that we have, right, is one ecosystem, and I always saw it that way, even from when I was a little kid. So not only did I retain this information very easily, not only did I understand it very easily, not only did I explain it very easily, but I also saw it, our human physiology and our state of being, right, as one equal system,
Mm.
right? And then we can go back into like, you know, God, right? Like God didn't like make us in bits and pieces, right?
That's right.
He made us in one shot, right? So that's kind of the way I see it, and yeah.
Yeah, that's again, I think it is a gift. It's like what you said in the beginning. It's we talk about our talents and we talk about our gifts, and it's always amazing and it's always important to understand. I always talk about this as purpose, right?
Yeah.
Understand what God's purpose is for you. And for me personally, you can only understand that if you're in communion with him. And you get to a certain point in your life, in your journey, where sometimes you don't understand God completely, but then you grow this relationship with God, and then you start realizing that everything that you went through since you were young, you start recognizing, you start understanding, like, man, God, he brought me through all this in order for me to get to this point. And those struggles, those hardships, and all those things that you went through was to prepare you for your purpose.
100%. You know, and I say too, like I was very blessed and very blessed that I realized that gift that God gave me very early, because there are people that spend
Sure.
their
Years.
years or their entire life trying to find out what their purpose is, right? Or rejecting it, right? And when I realized that, and if you ask me today, like, what is that gift or that talent that God gave you? Like, I'm a healer, right? The work that we have been able to do over the past decade, right, is nothing short of remarkable. I'm very proud of that. Borderline miraculous, right? We have some. That's why now, like, from like I think since 2015, right, on a lot of the like our athletes, the clients or whatnot, well, what they do is they either describe it as magic, right? Some clients are like, "Oh, this is borderline voodoo," right? Some clients describe it as like, "This is a miracle." Some clients say like, you know, this is like God given or whatnot, because like the work that we've done has been very special, right? Extremely special, and I'm very grateful for that. And I know God gave me this gift, right? And you know, I can't on an investor deck. I'm not gonna be like, oh, we do magic, right? We can't. So like I avoid talking about the whole magic stuff, but like honestly, like the outcomes that we have done, right, or the outcomes that we have been able to accomplish for our clients, especially the clients that are dealing with chronic issues, is borderline miraculous, right? And that came from merging all these different forms of science and training and putting it into one to understand the body as one unit. And that helped build and that helped build a stepping stone, right? So I say, like, God gave me a gift, right? And I tell people, look, when you realize whatever that gift is that God gave you, use it and share it, because that's going to multiply. And then when you multiply that, then it'll take you to the next purpose, right? Maybe like, so for now, like in the beginning of my career, when I realized when I had this gift and I started doing this work, and people started calling me a magician or the wizard, my nickname became the wizard, right? My staff calls me the wizard. So it's at that time, like I just saw that. I was like, okay, I'm going to continue helping. But then as my career expanded and the closer I got to God and the more things I was exposed to, I said, no. God gave me this gift to build a foundation to then build something greater, right? So it's like God gave me the ability to, let's say, God gave me cement, right? And then instead of trying to build a statue with cement, I built a foundation, right? And then now I can go, now that I have a foundation, then I can go and build something, right? So I think, we have to learn how to use our gifts or talents, right? Multiply them, and then that's going to be able to create a larger impact. And I think that's how the company has evolved, right? The more I realized that this gift that God gave me, right? You have two choices, right? In the parable of the talents, you have one that the one person just buried it because he was afraid of losing it.
Sure.
Okay, one person doubled it and he got 4, right? 2 to 4, and then one did 5 to 10.
Yeah.
Right. So it's kind of like you have this phases. I think like the first like maybe like 7 years, I was trying to go 2 to 4, right? But now I'm like doing 5 to 10, right? And then when the one that 5 to 10 did it, he ended up getting the one from the guy that buried it, and then he became the king of his own kingdom.
Right.
So you have to get to that level. So, and there's nothing wrong with being the guy that did 2 to 4, right? But the guy that went 5 to 10, he had a larger risk.
Absolutely,
right?
yeah.
A larger risk. It was more than double the responsibility. So that's the way I see it, and that's the evolution of the company, right? It started out as a 1-person team, then a 2-person team. Eventually, we got to almost like 20 plus people. Then we came
Right.
back down, and then it was like, okay, how can I create a larger impact, right? You know, I had one of our advisors and investors. He asked me. He said, "Why do you want to grow any more? Why do you want to scale?" Right? He said, "You know, you live a comfortable life, right? You have a good thing going. Everything's fine. You know, everything like the machine's just running smoothly. Why do you want to go stir up the waters and like, you know, why do you want to leave paradise for?" And I told him, you know, I said, look, you know, I know it might sound very cliche, but like I have a responsibility. And my responsibility now that I realize the level of responsibility I have, right, I have to go and leave an impact, right? So how can I do that? How can I create that impact? And that's where the evolution of the company is, and that's where we're at right now.
Right. And just to get, you know, let's go into some details of what that looks like, right? Because, you know, a lot of people are like, okay, what is this? A magician? What do you got? What do you do? Magic potions? Not really, right? There's a lot of data collecting involved with this.
100%.
So give me an example of something, because I experienced doing the DEXA, the VO2, some of those things that you do there at Infinity Delta. So give me an example of something.
So Infinity Delta, if you really look at it, there's 3 verticals in Infinity Delta, right? Number 1 is our pain management, right? And with pain management, that there's some data around that, but then there's a mixture of neurophysiology, neuroscience, right, kinematics, functional medicine, to truly understand the root cause of why you're having an issue, right? So that's one business vertical, and that's the magic part, right?
Right.
Because the way we've been able to do that and really find the root cause of stuff and 100% mitigate pain and correct issues, like it's scary how impactful that's been, right? That's the miracle part. And then what I did was I leveraged that, right, to then build what we have now, right? So build the other 2 business verticals, right? So the other business vertical is going to be our diagnostics, right? So you mentioned you did the DEXA scan, you did the VO2, you did the RMR, you've done the blood work, you've done, you know, the kinematic testing, the biomechanic testing. So I've leveraged that into that. And then the reason why I started that business vertical was to prove that the magic is actually science. And it is science, right? The thing is,
right.
The thing is, I mixed all these sciences together, right? I connected all these dots together to build this system. Right. And then everybody's like, what? And in my head, I'm like, why haven't you thought about doing this before? Why are we segmented all the time? And that's when I'm like, I think I'm going crazy. But then I build the first true sports science lab available to the public in order to objectify with data what we're doing in this business vertical. So it's not really magic, it's science, right?
Yeah, absolutely. It's not theory or anything like that.
No, there's science. I just started connecting
the numbers
everything.
don't lie.
Yeah, numbers
right?
don't lie. And that's why I did it. And then moving from that, right, then I said, wait a minute, why don't we start doing these 2 things, right, the magic part and then the data part, and start using it for like regular longevity, health, and fitness, right? Because what I noticed in the industry, because I was when I left the place that I told you left me and whatnot, I didn't leave. They kicked me out. But then the state came back and said, wait a minute. I started working at a training facility, which is one of the largest training facilities here in the country. And it was training, fitness, gym, whatever. And I was like, man, there's a huge gap. Like a lot of people are just like, it's like people are just, in this industry, people are just throwing spaghetti at a wall and seeing what sticks.
Sure.
Right. And then you see people that are like, oh yeah, I've been like doing this for like a year, but I haven't changed, or like I've only been able to gain 1 pound of muscle.
Yeah. Or they go based on someone else. Like, hey, it works for him, I'm going to do the same thing.
100%. Right.
Yeah,
so I saw that there's this gap. There's like this obscure, it's an obscure space, right?
Right.
Nobody knows what's telling the truth. Nobody knows what's not. Academia is against this. And then what you see on social media is this. And then, found out that Northwestern University did a meta-analysis and found out that 2/3 of the information we consume through digital platforms and social media is misleading the fitness industry. And the scary part about it too is, when it comes to like if you think about this, right, fitness, exercise is actually a form of medicine, right? They say, there's that term that they coined, exercise is medicine, but it is, right? Because you also got a dosage, right? You do too much is bad for you. You do too little, it doesn't do anything for you, right? So it technically it's a form of, functional medicine, right? I can argue, right? Because it changes your physiology. And you have people that have absolutely no experience, right? They get a like 2-hour certification telling people what to do.
Yeah, that right there bothers me,
No,
man, because I do get people like that.
No, of course, and like it's and let's not even talk about Miami. Miami's probably the capital of that, right? Miami's like
Big time.
I can, let's say I never did anything that I did now. Not, you don't have to be at the level that we're in, right?
Right.
But at least have a strong foundation and the basis for what you're doing,
Right.
and have some research, back data to help you and assist you, or you work with an organization that's going to kind of guide you.
Right.
But you don't find that here, right? You in the fitness industry, right? Let's say I never studied none of this stuff, which is whatever, and then I go and I run and I try to eat well and I start doing injectables, or let's say not even biologics. I could just start doing like street stuff, right? And I look good, I'm in shape, and then I tell people, hey, you want to look like me? Let's go. And then I'm gonna keep doing the same thing. So one of my professors, he said this one time, and he said, any fool can make any fool sweat. And that's what's happened. That's what happens, right? Any fool can make any fool sweat. And I say that to say that that's why I said, okay, we need to bring these two business verticals, or these two verticals, into the fitness component of it, right? And so you have like precision medicine, and I would call that third business vertical precision fitness, right? And then everything that we do falls under longevity, right? Think about this. In 2014, a year into opening Infinity, I was having clients like go do their blood work to check inflammatory markers and food sensitivities and things. I was doing that in 2014. Right. And everybody's like, oh, why are we doing that? I was like, well, you need to do it. You need to do it. And then the fitness clients were like, oh, I don't know if I need to do that. But like if you were a post-surgical client, or you were going to have surgery, I was having them do it before surgery. Right. So by the time they get out of surgery, we understand all the different metrics, and the recovery is faster. Right.
Which I always thought was common sense for me. I never understood the industry. And I always thought it was common sense. I'm like, man, you're giving me a diagnosis. You're telling me to take something. First of all, not diagnosis. Let me correct that. You're telling me to take something based on what I'm telling you, what I feel, but you don't really understand what's really happening inside. You don't really understand there's just so many questions I always had when somebody was giving me something. I was like, damn, I think it's a little bit deeper than that. I think there's a lot more going on.
No, 100%. And I saw it when, actually, around the time that I met you is when I started getting like these really bad migraines.
Oh man, I remember that.
Yeah, I started getting I was like 18 when I had like my first real bad one. Yeah. And I would go to my doctor and I'd be like, can you do like a food sensitivity study on me? That time was done with LCAT, right? Not Cyrex, it was LCAT. And they're like, oh, you don't have gut issues. I'm like, but can you just do it? No, because it doesn't make any sense. We're going to send it to a neurologist.
Because you don't fall into
because you're going to send it to a neurologist. I go to a neurologist, and the neurologist says, hey, we're going to give you this drug, borderline narcotic, for my migraines. I'm like, wait, but like, why are you giving me medication when like we can, like, I'm the one suggesting, like, I want to do blood work. I was 18 years old, but this is what I'm telling you. This thing just was common sense for me, right? I was like, I want to do blood work. I want to check my hormones. I want to check my inflammatory markers. I want to check all this stuff. Then I want you to check my food sensitivities and do all that. And then I want you to do a stool. So I'm telling the doctor like the diagnostics I want, right? And he's like, no, you don't have gut problems. You came here for a headache.
That's crazy.
This was in 2007. I'm like, what? But I
just to go show how the pharmaceutical industry just has much of a grab.
And I won't even say it's just pharmaceutical companies, just Western medicine. Here's the thing,
Western
right?
medicine, yeah.
Here's the thing, right?
Yeah.
Western medicine is amazing at trauma.
Oh, yeah. Hands down.
Nothing better. Listen, you got in a really bad car accident, and you just crushed your femur, thank God you're in America,
Yep.
right? You have migraines,
Prevention. Forget it.
forget it, right? So that's the gap that, and you see that trickles on to, and fitness is like the worst thing, right? Fitness is a wild, wild west.
Right.
Wild, wild west. Imagine over 60% of what you consume, that we consume on a daily basis, is misleading, is BS. And that's where I said, okay, this is where I'm going to leave an impact. So like I leveraged the talents that God gave me to build part 2. And then I put that together, and I'm leveraging those 2 things now to build part 3, which in reality is everything is one, right? And that's where we're at now, right? So imagine we have clients all over the world. We have clients in Latin America. We have clients in Europe. We got clients in other parts of North America that we help. I call it, manage your health or help their longevity. But it's keeping them healthier for a long time. Like at the end of the day, like whenever we do like our health questionnaires with all of our clients, and we've over the years, we have thousands and thousands, tens of thousands of clients, right? These people, whether they're a Fortune 500 executive, $1 billion fund manager, just exited, did a unicorn exit, right? They say, I don't care to live forever, but I care to live as long as possible to the best of my ability.
Yeah.
Right. So, and that's exactly my mission now, right? The mission is, and this is my thesis. This week there was a big financial conference. I'm talking to investors that flew in and that I had meetings with. And I said, this is my thesis. God made us perfect. We can argue this day and night. God made us perfect. Whether you believe in God or not, we're perfect, right? Our brain is still more complex than your iPhone. Think about that, right?
Absolutely.
Right. So God made us perfect in the way that everything works. I was actually thinking about this morning, right? When I was thinking about kinematics and biomechanics, and I was like this could only be designed. Like this doesn't just happen, right? And my thesis is God made us perfect, right? Our habits and our environment moved us away. And I want to say perfection would be, I would call perfection homeostasis, right? We're in balance, okay? And as we get exposed to all these things, right, it gets us out of whack. It's all crazy. So our job at Infinity now, and over the past, say, 6 years, the real focus has been getting you back to balance, right? Because when you're in balance, right, decay is going to be slower, right? Because the fight for living forever is really slowing down decay, right? So you're going to decay a little slower, right? You're going to move better, right? Your muscle tonicity is going to improve, right? All these markers that are markers for longevity are going to be better, right? You don't have to add a whole bunch of stuff, right? Like for example, if I go to a trash bin, it's full of trash, right? And I start throwing soap at it, and I go to Aroma 360 and buy a machine, right? So it can smell better, and I throw it in there. It's not going to change the fact that it's a trash bin full of trash. It's still trash.
Still trash,
right?
yeah.
In order for me to be able to have a clean trash bin, I would need to remove all the trash. Then I would have to clean it, right? And then I would have to maintain it that way. So, and that's where also longevity and biohacking, I believe, is going wrong, right? And many of the money allocators I spoke to, are with me on this, right? That think about this. We're looking for this magic pill. We're looking for this magic peptide. We're investing so much in regenerative medicine. There's billions and billions of dollars being invested in biologics and research.
It's going to increase.
Imagine, right now there are funds that are multi-billion-dollar funds, right? That are being closed right now in order to go and start investing in biotech, right? But the thing is, this stuff is powerful, but if we're throwing at a dirty trash bin and say your body, it's not gonna, so our job at Infinity, right, is not to add all these things. It's remove all these things, get you back into homeostasis, your nervous system, right, your mental state, emotional state, like all these different things. Your system's working in synchrony together, right? You're being as healthy as possible, being as resilient as possible,
Right.
and then you can optimize. But you can't optimize on top of trash. It's like imagine you have like a 1999
I
Toyota
say that all the time. Yeah.
Toyota Camry
Yeah.
that's super dirty, has flat tires, right?
Right.
Has 400,000 miles, and then
Right.
you want to go put a supercharger on it.
Yep.
It
Doesn't work,
makes
your
it
body.
makes no sense.
Yeah.
It
always
makes
say
no
that.
sense. So, now, right, in adding this third vertical, right, we started adding the data component and the functional approach, right, to fitness, and we build programs and protocols around that, and we're hyper successful with the outcomes, right? And then now, in this new stage of our company, we are transitioning into making that the focal point, because it's not really fitness. If I can argue that's really longevity, right? Because all the most important biomarkers that research looks at for longevity is what we're improving and what we're doing now, right? So that's why now like our program is called N=1. So N=1 is our longevity protocol, right? And then they're like, oh, what's a protocol? And I always say, I don't know, right?
Yeah.
It depends on what the data shows.
So you basically build a roadmap for that individual. So it's very
think about this.
individualized.
We're collecting 1 million data points per engagement, and everybody's like, "Oh, you're really collecting 1 million data points?" Yeah, just a kinematic system, we collect 500,000 kinematic and biomechanical data points. Now add all the other testing that we do.
So explain that a little bit. What is that exactly? For those who don't understand what that is.
So what we do is we have a very advanced biomechanical and kinematic analysis software, right? It was probably the most expensive one in the market. And what that does is it reads, in plain terms, it reads how your joints are moving, how much force you're producing, any deficiencies and dysfunctions in your skeletal structure, in your muscles, all that stuff, right? So that system alone, or that testing that we do, we collect 500,000 data points.
That's crazy.
Just that alone,
Wow.
right? And then tag on what we collect on the DEXA scan, tag on what we collect in the metabolic testing, tag on what we collect in all the multiple different blood work, panels that we do, tag on your cardio and pulmonary systems and what the data that we collect when we analyze that. It's a lot of data, right?
Yeah, a lot of data. There's one that I really enjoy is the DEXA. So give me a little bit more about the DEXA, right? Because the DEXA, there's a lot. Man, I never understood the whole thing that people like to hold on to, and it says that it collects your body fat.
Yeah.
I'm like, how in the world is this thing?
No, so the way it
even working,
it's
though?
called
Can you
bio.
explain
So
how does that work?
what you find, like there's a system, the most advanced system like that is called the InBody.
Yeah, the InBody.
Yeah,
right.
so InBody is a biological impedance. So in lame terms, what it does is it shoots electricity through your body, right? And then it goes from one point to the other point. And then the rate of speed is what determines how much fat you have, because that electrical current is going to move slower in fat. Fatty tissue is going to move faster in lean tissue, right? But typically, it doesn't make any sense, because if I hold it here, right, it's here, right? So my arms are obviously going to be leaner than the rest of my body, right? And then it's also, it can't measure the density of different tissues.
Yeah,
it can predict it. It'll predict it, right? It's like a predictive model based off all these different algorithms that
Which
has.
they don't say that though. They don't kind of
like
advertise. Because I did it in a facility. I'm not going to name the facility, but I did it, and I did it twice or three times, and it gave me 3 different responses, and I was like, how is this even? How am I going to go based on this?
Yeah, and what you just that's a big problem that we're fighting now, right?
Right.
And I'm gonna go into it now. So with bioelectro impedance, you have a margin of error of between 15 and 20%, right? So that's a pretty significant,
absolutely,
margin of error. And the DEXA scans, depending on the model, you're gonna have somewhere anywhere between below 1%, higher up to like above 5%. The model that we use, it is less than 1% margin of error. Also, we have like the Bugatti of DEXA scans, right? Like I won't say Rolls Royce of it, but I'm gonna say the Bugatti because it is the most accurate one. I actually found, I was searching through my old emails, and I was communicating with the manufacturer, and I was like, man, I wonder I forgot how much we paid for this, right? And I go and I look at the invoice, and I look at the MSRP on this, like over $200,000 is the MSRP of this machine. So we got the best of the best, because when it comes to manipulating your physiology and giving you prescriptions, whether it's exercise, nutrition, whatever, you want to be as close to 0% margin of error as possible, because if these margin of errors are higher, then I can either make you unhealthier, right? Or I'm not going to provide the right dosage of whatever it is that I'm trying to do for you.
Right.
And then you're not going to have any change. In physiology, right, there's something called the SAID principle. It states specific adaptation to impose demand. So if you want a specific adaptation, whether that's gain XYZ muscle, whether that's jump higher, whatever that meant, whatever that is that you want, that adaptation, you need to have an imposed demand, right? And think of the imposed demand as the medicine, right?
Mm.
So I need to dose it right. So that's like, imagine when it comes to wellness, health, holistic wellness, fitness, sports, right? We're not measuring that. So it's like if I'm giving you, imagine like you said, right? Imagine you go to the doctor, you're like, doc, I feel sick. And he says, okay, just take this medicine. You ask him how much, and be like, just do that. But he never got your height, your weight,
Right.
any preconditions you might have or whatnot. So, and we're doing that in health, wellness, sports, and fitness. And I'm going to argue too that those things impact you way more than anything you do in your life.
Yeah, absolutely. So
Yeah.
that's why I think, the testing that you do there is phenomenal, because again, you get to see exactly what the percentage of your body fat is, and just exactly what is really going on.
Yeah, and then with the DEXA scan, right? The DEXA scan is not just body fat that we're looking on. That's the last thing I really
Right.
care about, right? It's funny because the DEXA scan is what we sell the most of, because I say the DEXA scan is a sexy girl at the bar, right? Everybody wants to get on it because it's so cool.
Yeah,
and
it is cool though.
Yeah, it's cool, right? Luckily, it's fast, right? Because
Right.
typically DEXA scans take between 15 and 20 minutes. But
This one's like 5 minutes, I think.
no, 2 minutes.
2 minutes.
Yeah,
That's right.
2 minutes and 23 seconds to be exact.
Wow.
So we do that, but what we're looking at is like we're looking at your bone density, right? I'm looking at your lean mass and how that's distributed between your extremities, and I'm paying attention to the asymmetrical differences or variances between left and right limbs. We're looking at, the same thing with your bones, right? The asymmetrical variances between your limbs. We're looking at your visceral fat, which is a fat that you find in your abdominal cavity, in your organs, the fat that you can't see, right? We're looking at how this fat is distributed in the body, and depending on how your fat is distributed in the body, whether you're male or female, I can pinpoint if you have a hormonal dysfunction, right?
Wow.
Right? Because because here's the thing, right? I'm lucky enough to have all these different data metrics, and I can say this connects to here, this connects to here, this
Right.
connects to here. So let's say if somebody just came in for a DEXA scan, and I see one of these numbers is off, I'm saying, hey, you probably have a hormonal dysfunction. Let's run blood work. You do blood work, boom, there it is, right? So the DEXA scan is like the entry point, right? It's like the lowest picking fruit for somebody to come in here and understand their body, right? And then that usually is, I want to say, the DEXA scan is the gateway to being healthier, because you do that and then you see you see all these things, and then we can start collecting more data and pinpointing everything together, and then we build a protocol around it, right? So the DEXA scan is the sexy girl, right, at the bar, right? And it gives us the most palatable information.
Yeah,
Right.
I enjoy it. I think it's a lot of information in there. Whenever you look at the DEXA, and again, I think you're the only one in South Florida, if I'm not mistaken, right?
There's maybe like 2 or 3 other DEXA scans.
Okay.
Our model, no. I know that they have there's either the same company but lower model,
Right.
right? So you're gonna spend 15 minutes on this DEXA scan, or there's a General Electric model, which is like obsolete pretty much, and it's trash.
You got the
right?
Bugatti.
Yeah.
You're the only one that gets the Bugatti in the area.
And mind you, it's really expensive. For some people, it's like, oh, who cares? Like, we'll just get this, and that's fine. But I mean, you know me, right?
Yeah,
I got it
yeah.
tatted on my finger. Nothing but the best. So it's like I always want to give the best, right? Because if I'm gonna do something, and here it goes back. If I'm gonna struggle with anything,
Right.
I might as well swing for the fences and be the best of the best of the best. And I'd rather fall from the mountaintop than never climb to the top.
Well, here's the thing, though. I think when it comes to anything that has to deal with medicine, anything that you're dealing with someone's health, you want to be able to give the best of the best. I just feel uncomfortable in knowing that I'm going to go to a facility and I'm going to hold on to a machine with my hands, and based on that, you're going to give me a protocol. I just don't want to do that. So again, emphasizing why it's important.
And then even then, that's not enough information. The
Right.
DEXA scan is not enough information.
That's just one part.
That's
now
just
let's
one
go.
part.
Since we're going into that, let's go into the whole VO2, because I did the VO2, and my score was very poor. Which you did said I had a little time to live if I didn't change that. Right? Tell me the importance of the VO2. What is a VO2 and why is it important? And the reason why I love the subject when you brought it up was because a lot of people have the idea of, I want to lose weight, so I'm going to eat less, which then you told me, no, what the VO2 is saying is you have to. Yeah, so, please correct it.
So correct it. So there,
educate.
What you're talking about there, about the eating part, that's your resting metabolic rate. So
right.
we do a resting metabolic rate analysis done with the same mass that we do the VO2.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah, and what we're measuring, right, is your metabolism, how many calories your body burns at rest, right? And then we measure that through gas exchanges. That's what the mask is measuring. And that's super important, because then if you don't know how much your body needs, how much you need to fuel your body nutritionally, right, then how do you know whether you're overeating or undereating? And now I'm gonna say this. We've been doing this for about 10 years, right? I'm gonna say 90% of the individuals that we've done testing on are severely undereating.
That's crazy.
And when you severely undereat, and I'm not going to get into the science of it because we could spend like an hour here.
Yeah.
But when you severely undereat, or I say when you chronically undereat, right, that's when you slow down your metabolism, right? So your metabolism slows down, and then the energy source your body utilizes at rest switches from fats to protein. So when it switches from fats, so right now that we're sitting down here and talking, the energy we're utilizing is fat, right? So when it switches over to protein, that means at rest you're breaking down your own muscle tissue, in the plain terms, right? Just keeping it simple, right? So we're going back into confusion, right? Everybody talks about, look, we need to be in a caloric deficit, da 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 da. And I'm saying, well, maybe, but if you don't know your RMR, and then we don't predict your caloric expenditure throughout the day, then how do you know whether you're like, you might be like, most of our clients are severely undereating by over 1,000 calories.
That's a lot, right?
Yeah, that's a lot. Like I think we had one client, we did the RMR, and he's like, oh yeah, I'm eating about like 1,800 calories a day. But like, I can't lose weight. It doesn't make sense. Everything says,
Does it matter between female and male?
Doesn't matter. I mean, males are always going to have a higher RMR. Right? Typically, not always, but typically males will have more.
Size and all that,
yeah, depending on the size. So this one client is like, oh, I'm eating 1,800 calories. I'm like, okay, you're probably under eating. And he's like, no way. Like, I'm eating this and I'm eating this and I'm eating this, and I just can't lose weight. And like, I still feel sluggish. I don't get it. And I said, well, we did the RMR. His resting metabolic rate was 1,800 calories. That means just laying down in bed for 24 hours, he would burn 1,800 calories.
Wow.
Now you add on activities of daily living, right? You add on exercise, you add on sport, you add on commuting, you add all these different things, right? And he needed to be consuming like 3,200 calories. And he was only eating 18. So he was negative 1,400. So all he was doing was breaking down his body. Right? So then what we did is we did a reverse diet. So we increased his caloric intake. We actually increased it. So he needed to be at like a 32. We increased it from 18 to 25, 25 to 28. And then we kept it between 28 and 29, depending on how much activity he's doing for the day. So now at 28, he's still in a caloric deficit, but he's still eating 1,000 calories more than what he was eating before. In that same week, he's like, oh, I stepped on the scale. I lost like 3 pounds. I'm like, who cares about the scale? The only thing that matters is the DEXA scan. Then he's like, my pants are fitting looser. I'm eating more, but my pants are fitting looser. The thing is, we have this negative connotation that we have to eat like a bird to lose weight. No, you just have to eat what your body needs,
Right.
right? And then we can talk about like calories in, calories out, exercise, blah, 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 blah. But like if you don't know how much your body needs, that's like you buying a car and not knowing how much gas you have to put in it.
That's right.
You know, and then every time you go there, like you're like, oh, I think I should put 10 gallons. And your car needed 20,
Yeah.
right? And then you're wondering why you got to keep going to the gas station. All right. So that's the importance of the RMR, right? And the importance of data. Now let's talk about the VO2, right? Because you mentioned the VO2.
Right, right.
So your VO2, what we're measuring is, how many liters of oxygen your lungs are able to intake per minute, and how well we're utilizing that oxygen for energy, and then what energy sources your body's utilizing depending on activity intensity, right? And that we would consider that to be the number one marker for longevity. That's number one. Number two is your lean mass index. Your lean mass index is how much muscle mass you have divided by your height, right? So that's the second most important. And those two longevity markers are directly correlated to mortality and mortality rates. So they're really important. So with the VO2 max, we're measuring, how well and efficiently your heart's working, how well and efficiently your lungs are working, right? How much oxygen you're able to absorb, how much oxygen you're able to use, what energy source your body's utilizing at what intensity levels. And I love the VO2 max. So the RMR is for your diet and nutrition. The VO2 max is for how are you going to train, right? Because
that thing kicked my butt,
yeah,
man.
because depending on whatever your goal is, right? Whether you want to run a marathon, whether you want to lose fat, whether you want to become more explosive, whatever it is, you need to do a VO2 max, right? Because the VO2 max is going to tell me exactly, okay, in order to accomplish A, we need to do X. In order to accomplish C, we need to do Z, right? So like, and then we can cater your training protocols around that.
Right.
And then we also know exactly what is it that you're lacking. We had one of our NFL players, right, where we did it and we saw that, really high VO2 max, amazing, right? His zone 2 in recovery was really high, so that's awesome. But then his higher zones, right, his zone 5B was really low, right? So then I asked him, I was like, hey, when you get tired, when you're running in the NFL, right? I go, when you're in a game and they hand you the ball and you run, I go, and you hit a 20, 30-yard run, I go, I bet you don't get tired. He's like, yeah, I don't get tired. I go, I'll bet $100 you get tired in the huddle. He goes, yeah, how do you know? Like, I'm like in the huddles where like I start feeling like gassed out and then like I have to like mentally prepare for the next play. I said, yeah. I go, but I bet when you run again, the running is easy.
That's interesting,
right?
man.
So then he's like, yeah. I said, okay. So I go, the problem with him was, right, his heart was having a hard time buffering. So like recovering, right? So his heart can maintain a higher intensity, but the minute it was time to recover, it was having a really hard time buffering. All right. So guess what we did? We trained that. That's what we trained. Specifically, just that component. And I mean,
how would you train someone like that? Like, how does that look like? Just so people can get an idea, because I'm trying to, imagine that.
So what we would have to do is we would have to do some activity, high intensity activity that's going to spike his heart rate to that zone 5B, and then push it past that, right? Maintain that for a period of time, and then do something that would be a slower activity, right? That he's still moving, right? He's still ambulatory, still moving, still some form of activity, lower intensity, and then start training the heart being able to like slow down. Wow. But this guy is a freak, because like within a week, like his recovery was like, because what we're measuring is, let's say once you hit your max heart rate, how long does it take you to get the first minute, right? In the first minute, how much does your heart rate drop? And then minute 2, minute 3, minute 4, minute 5.
Right.
And then we're looking at the speed of recovery, right? And then we're also looking at like how well your heart is, how well you're buffering the lactic acid and doing all these different things. So for him, like typically what we like to see in Infinity, right, is like from max heart rate, right, in the first minute, that we're dropping anywhere between like and this is very aggressive. Everything we do in Infinity is very aggressive. We want to see that you're dropping like 30 to 40% in that from max heart rate. In that first minute, you drop 30-40%, and then we'll go like 30%, 25%, and then by the time you hit minute 5, you're at your resting heart rate. So if your resting heart rate was like 45, right, I want you at 45 by minute 5, right, latest. So with him, this guy's a freak. Within like a week and a half, he was dropping like 40%, like. And then I remember the team calls me. Like, then he goes back to the team after the off season. The team calls me. He's like, dude, like, what are you guys doing? Like, but it's because like we're utilizing data to guide what we're doing. Like, instead of wasting his time, right, doing a whole bunch of BS, like, let's just focus on the things that we need to focus on, that we need to improve. Yeah. And actually, the CMO, ex-CMO of Chime, she asked me, she's one of our advisors now. You know, shout out to her, by the way. Superstar Silicon Valley. I'm blessed to have these people around me, right? Advising me. So she's like, Hector, what distinguishes us from everybody else? I'm like, number one, the amount of data that we collect, right? But if I can use one word, it's called speed, right? Speed. And when you have clarity, right, you can get from point A to point B really fast. Right.
You know what you're doing.
Yeah. It's a GPS. Imagine trying to go to Orlando and rush hour traffic with the road map. You know, like, how long is it going to take you? Now try using Google Maps or Waze. Right. So that's why we can get from point A to point B really fast. And it's why men on average with us over the past 10 years have been gaining roughly about 1.2 to 1.5 pounds of muscle a week.
That's crazy.
This same athlete gained 10.1 pounds of muscle in four weeks. And we weren't really lifting like that, right? We were just targeting the things that needed to be targeted.
See, that's what makes the difference, is working on what needs to be worked on and not wasting time on.
Look, our software developer, right? Yeah, he gained. I put him on a program. I was like, if you're gonna be with our team, I need to put you on a program. So I put him on a program. And the first 6 weeks, he gained 10 pounds of muscle.
That's amazing, man.
Yeah, and then in the group of because we're all friends, in a group of friends, I send them I send them things. So we call them the beast now. But data allows us to move really fast, right? But it requires action. But that's what I'm going to say. You said intentional. It requires action, intentional action.
Right.
One of our other investors, founder of Wix.com, Euro Kaplan. Shout out to him. Super smart guy. It's the reason why I've been going to Costa Rica back and forth the past 3 years.
Yes. I need to join in.
You need to join. You totally need to join. And every time I go, like he's advising me on the business. Obviously, he's one of our investors, but he's advising me on the business. He's kind of guiding me. But like the last time I went, which was in the summer, which is atypical for me to go that long without going. Right. So it's been a couple months now. I go. And he flew in the CEO of Wix.com, right? So they're at the house because, he's a founder. He kind of stepped away from day-to-day operations. The CEO's there. And they were talking about Infinity, both of them, and like what we do. And he's explaining everything. And we're going over through the whole process of what we do things. And then Gig's like, he's like, well, he doesn't punch it, but he slams the table and he's like, action. And I'm like, what? He's like, action is what sets us apart, right? It's action, because he's like, look, I spent millions of dollars working on my health and longevity and all this other stuff, and like this is the first time that I feel the way I feel. I do what I do, right? I'm able to perform mentally, physically, emotionally at the levels that I do because of the action part. This is why I'm invested in Infinity. This is why I've been a client of yours for 4 years. This is why we're doing this. And this is why I fly to Costa Rica all the time, right? Like it's, for me to step away from the facility, it's, it's a significant cost, and not many people can pay for. But, and he's like, it's action. So it's a combo of like speed and action, right? Because here it goes, right? There's a lot of companies out there that do a ton of blood work. There's a ton of companies that will maybe do a DEXA scan, whether it's a model that we use or we don't use, right, across the world. There's a lot of these companies, and there's even more now because it's a sexy thing, right? 8 years ago, I probably had like maybe one competitor. Now there's like multiple competitors, but here's the thing, right? Everything is segmented, number one, right? Then second, everybody's utilizing diagnostics like it's a cool thing. Like, okay, I have my testosterone is at 200 and this is here, and then my bone density is here, and my VO2 max is this. And they give it to you, and you say, and then what?
Right. That's
And
the
then
thing.
what?
Yeah,
So
yeah.
I was actually with one of the investors. So we had an investor from a fund. I'm having lunch with her, and now she's working for another fund. So we're trying to figure out if that fund's gonna be able to invest in us because they do larger projects than we do. But I'm gonna put Avida with her, and we're talking, and she's like, yeah, like we were thinking about investing in Function. Function raised a ton of money. I think what Function is doing is powerful because you're democratizing the blood work and more advanced blood work, not like the stupid little panels your doctors tell you. It's a lot. You're getting
More
100
advanced, yeah.
biomarkers, for very inexpensive. We do more, but it's expensive, right? But she's like, we're here in Function, and then she texts me. She's like, hey, we're here like listening to Function. They're presenting right now to us. What sets you apart? And I said, and I had just come back from being with Gig, right? So I'm like, action. So she goes.
That's so true.
She goes, and she's like, I'll call you later. I'm like, okay, cool. So I guess she had to like sit on the presentation, do whatever. And then she texts me. She's like, oh my God, you're so right. Because at the end of the day, she said that what they kept mentioning is like, you now have the power of your data. The thing is like, data is like knowledge, right? It is all potential, right? I would say, because they say knowledge is power. No, knowledge is potential. Execution is power.
Absolutely.
Right? And execution is action. But then the rate of that or the urgency of the execution is, I think that is a powerful thing, right? That is power.
Yeah.
If you multiply execution with urgency, right, and that's extremely powerful. So, and that's the world that we fall into, right?
Yeah.
And,
absolutely.
And I may be spilling the beans, but honestly, like,
no, it's super. I think it's very important.
Because everybody's like, oh, but like, don't talk too much about like how you do things, and I'm still not like going really in depth. But I told this to somebody. Somebody said, Hector, can you send me all this info? Blah blah blah. And I go, and they tell me. She tells me, she's like, oh, I'll sign whatever NDA you need me to sign. And I put laughing out loud. I was like, don't worry. And then I sent her voice. And I was like, you don't need to sign an NDA. And then she's like, why? And I'm like, look, I'm gonna tell you everything you want to know. And if you try to copy what we do, then good luck, right? Literally like that. Like I literally before I was like, it's funny because when I was younger, I was like, oh, I'm not even gonna tell you like step one if you don't sign an NDA. But now it's kind of now the way I feel is like, dude, I'll tell you everything that you want to know. Good luck.
Yeah.
Good luck, because at the end of the day, you got to put in the work.
That's the thing. That's what, and I always tell that to people is, it doesn't matter. It's like, I love watching Chef Ramsay cook, love it. And I get so inspired. I go and I get the stuff and I'm like, bro, this did not come out the same way. There's a difference when you see a master chef do something for years and years and years. It's a talent, it's a gift. You can try to manipulate it, but it's going to take tears, sweat, and a lot of passion and heart to put that together.
Look, I'll say this. I'm going to say this. If, for example, if I wasn't the founder, right? Mm-hmm. And I didn't go through all these struggles to understand the systems and do all these different things that I do now, not that I do now, but that I went through, right, to be where I am today, I wouldn't be here today because if I was just an investor, right, if it was like more of a money thing, right, like, okay, I'm investing in this, I would have pulled the plug on this a long time ago, right, as an investor. Right. So that's why, like, when I sit down with like people that are interested in investing or doing things, and like, they'll be like, "Oh, where's the NDA?" I'm like, "Hey, here, you can sign it if you want to. I really don't care." Like, I'm not. Yeah. It's not gonna stop this meeting from happening because, dude, like, good luck.
Yeah.
Good luck.
Well, I'll make you sign it if it was some technology that I don't want you to
No,
have
no,
that
no, no, no,
hands
no.
on.
Now for
But
sure. Like when I'm talking about like business, right?
absolutely.
Not like if you have like a patent and things like
Yeah.
that, and you don't have the patent registered, 100%. But good luck. Like,
Right,
and then
right.
if you happen to try to copy what we do, good luck.
I do the.
Good luck.
It's in any industry.
And you know what? As a matter of fact, I welcome it, because if somebody's trying to do what we're doing, or getting into the space of what we're doing, that makes me happy. And I'll tell you why it makes me happy.
You want to inspire others. You can't take care of
No, but
everybody.
it's not about inspiring others. But what makes me happy, because that's validation.
Mm,
Okay, I wasn't crazy.
right.
Because like for a while, I'm like, "Ooh, that like it doesn't make sense. I'm kind of like, am I crazy here? But it makes sense, right?
Yeah.
Like look at like Sam Walton, right? When he wanted to do when they wanted to do Walmart and they founded Walmart, right? It was like, oh, that's a crazy idea, blah 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 blah. That's never gonna work. Why would you do it? That's so difficult. Da da. Look, now you have a whole bunch of places that are similar,
right.
right? You got Target, right, or Target, how they say it,
Mm-hmm.
right? You have all these different big box retail stores that are trying to copy the model.
Mm.
I mean, in that sense, you can argue that like Whole Foods is that, right? Like, if there was no Walmart, I don't think there'd be an Amazon,
Sure.
right? You know, and if you go into Publix, Publix is like a mini Walmart,
Yeah.
right? So yeah, like I think competition breeds innovation,
I was
right?
thinking about that right now. Yeah.
It also breeds collaboration,
Absolutely.
right? It's also validation, and lastly, as I would say, is impact. So let's say I grow the company, I turn it, it becomes a unicorn. Let's say I only service, say I service 1 million clients a year. Right, that's only 1 million people. What if, because of what we're doing, right, a competitor comes along the way and tries to copy what we do? Whether I would say they're probably going to want to be cheaper because we're fairly expensive. So let's say they're on the lower price model, and I say now they target the middle class.
Yeah.
Amazing. Because then and then say maybe they have 2 million clients. Amazing. Because now, as a group, we're now servicing 3 million people. We're now impacting 3 million lives.
Absolutely.
We're now changing the health of 3 million households. So like, yeah, for sure, dude. There's what, 7-8 billion people in the world right now.
Yep. Can't see all of them.
I literally, like, I tell everybody, I need 100,000 people. On 100,000 people, I'll do a unicorn exit, right? But so imagine that's not even 1%, right? So for me, like I told this one person, I was like, yeah, good luck, whatever, like, go ahead, right?
Yeah.
And then every now and then, I get like one of my advisors send me an article. One place is opening that's almost similar, trying to copy what you do, and then I'm like,
it's gonna happen.
I'm like, yes, right? And they're like, what? I'm like, yes, it's validation. We're not crazy.
Exactly.
Right? Can you imagine, well, back, early in the, let's go back 2-3 decades. Can you imagine somebody thinking about an electric powered car and making it accessible to the world? That's like, oh my God, that's unfeasible. We're gonna get this energy from blah 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 blah. And the first person comes out, then they think they're crazy. Tesla. I mean, look at Tesla, right? Tesla was on the brink of being bankrupt.
Right.
They weren't making any money. They were losing all this other stuff, and now they're $1 trillion company. And guess what? They're not the only electric vehicle company.
Right. There's so many popping up now.
Right? Even the major vehicle manufacturers in the auto industry, they have EVs.
Right. When you see Porsche doing it, it's like, oh, there's something there.
Yeah, I mean, Ferrari has an electric vehicle, right? Which is, the super, the SF90. You have, Porsche, and they were doing that in 2012, right? So why? Because somebody was innovating,
Right.
right? Then that bred, oh, we got to do it. So bred competition. So competition bred more innovation. And now there's something for everybody, right? Let's say, for example, you have Toyota has an EV vehicle, right? Okay, there's now that's a target market and people down there can afford it, then you might want like a nice Tesla, and that's come like somewhere upper higher middle class. or you might want a Porsche, or you want, XYZ. So there's within the industry, there's multiple different market segments, and
Absolutely.
it doesn't matter, right? And I'll say, like, I'll position myself as being, let's say, like the Porsche, the Ferrari of what we do, and it is what it is, right? Like, yeah, Ford makes more money than Ferrari, but Ferrari makes a lot of money too, and they're stick to their lane, and that's what they want to do, and they have their client base, and they're happy, and so I don't know if they're helping their client base, right? But they're doing that, right? So it is what it is, right?
Yeah.
And and that's how I feel, and I've been able to position, like I said, the talents and gifts that God gave me to kind of start building to build a foundation to make a massive impact in the world, right? And for example, my market segment, or the demographic I'm looking for, are the leaders in the world, right? Like most of our, I mean, our client base,
Yeah.
right? So our client base are the ones that movers and shakers. I say some of the most powerful people, in the world, in their respective industries, in their respective governments, in their respective areas, career, non-career. So that's the target market I'm looking at, right? Now, this new phase of the company, we're going to drop that a little lower and try to make it a little bit more feasible to some people.
All right, so let's go on that, because we're gonna almost close on that. So before you go into it, give me the new chapter of Infinity Delta. Okay, let's try to make this nice and juicy. What is Infinity Delta, and how can you describe it, and what can people expect from it?
So Infinity Delta, now we're transitioning over into, what I tell in the meetings I've had is, we're a health and longevity company. We're a health, longevity, and technology company. So we're building our softwares, right, to track all these data metrics for every individual, right? We're building the AI, where it's going to be powered by the data, massive amounts of data that we collect.
Took a little look at it. Super dope.
Yeah, right. And then a second part of that is, then we're going to build these algorithms based off my team's mental algorithm, right? So build that specific algorithm, plug it into the AI. So now the AI can then build protocols around all the data that we collect. And then within a year, we collect up to 10 million data points on every individual. So now it's building the hubs for that, right? Your data is powering your AI, because this AI is like your guy. So it's like, if you have, let's say, for this conversation, it's like you have me in your pocket, or you have my entire team in your pocket to help you become healthier, live longer, right? And that's a new transition of where we're going, right? So we've been kind of like beta testing this for the past 5 years. And when we made the decision that we want to make an impact, we want to scale, right? That's where we're going, right? Because now we already have clients, like I mentioned in the beginning, we have clients all over the world, right? But it comes at a cost, right?
Absolutely.
So how can I automate this without losing the quality of what we do and giving more exposure? So maybe you don't have to make $1 million a year, right? Maybe you can make $150,000 a year, right? So it's still going to be an investment, right? And we're going to have satellite locations where you can go and get tested. We'll have partner locations where you can go get tested. Then we're going to have one headquarters in North America, which our new headquarters is almost done. And then eventually going into the Middle East region and creating a large impact there, and then going to Europe, and then going to other different places. But the digital landscape, what we're building, what you've had a chance to see, I love our developer, what I think here, he's done a really good job at like materializing it, his entire team. We got lucky with that, and he has a huge team. So that's almost like our development branch for us, and we've done a good job, and we're transitioning over to that. So there's, in essence, as a company, we have HQ, and then we have Infinity Delta, but digital, right? And then we have like I'd call like our satellite locations, where I call them like our data centers, right? Data centers, HQ is a brain, and then the digital is where everybody should be living.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
So guys, you guys got to stay tuned for, what's coming. The headquarters is almost ready. So hopefully when this airs, it's already opened. So you're thinking about when? I think it's already open.
It's already open, but to like our current, it's not official yet.
Yeah.
Right. It's not official yet. We're already open. It's for our current client base.
Exactly.
And I'm giving the builder,
Sometime, yeah. He wants to do something really nice, and I already got sneak peeks, and we are going to be doing some content there. But beautiful facility.
Yeah.
I mean, it is something that people will feel they're in a different place. That's all I got to say.
yeah. Just say it's
Spoiler.
inspired. It's inspired by a beautiful island in Europe, right?
There you go.
Yeah. So,
There you go. So yeah, guys, stay tuned for that. Where can people find you?
well, Instagram, right? I know I took a big hiatus of Instagram,
Yes.
but you can find, my personal Instagram is coach_HM.
Mm-hmm.
Then our new Instagram is Infinity Delta HQ. We'll probably have multiple Instagrams for different business services we have, but Infinity Delta HQ is going to be like the brain of it. And then online, you can go to infinitydelta.io, and you can also go to sportssciencelabs.com.
Awesome. So, Heck, I'm going to leave you with the last word. And I want you to just look straight at that camera, this camera right there. And for someone, I want you to give them that message of that entrepreneur, health. What would be that advice you would give to that person that is on that journey, thinking about their health, thinking about building a business, whatever they are? What advice would you give them?
Number one, invest in your health, right? And invest in your health in your 30s and your 40s, because you won't be able to invest in your health in your 60s and your 70s. It's too late for that, right? So you invest in your future health now in your 30s and your 40s. That's that's one thing I would say. Then second, right, collect the data and find an organization or a person that can analyze this data and create intentional action with urgency, and you're going to get from point A to point B extremely fast. Now, the best advice I can give somebody is just come and check us out.
There you go, guys. Thank you again for tuning in to the ACT podcast. And again, it's an honor, privilege to have my bro. Super happy for him. We have been on this journey for many years. God has been blessing him. And again, there is always going to be ups and downs, but having God at the center of your life is the most important thing that you can ever do. Whatever you're dealing with, God has a solution. Just keep him in the center of all that. So thank you guys for tuning in.
100%. And never forget to say if it's God's will, because we have our own plan.
Hey, yes.
We have our own plan.
Yeah.
But it is all God's will.
That's right.
And one advice I do have for people,
Go ahead.
since we're talking about God here, is, I hope that the viewers that are watching this learn how to surrender to God.
Amen.
Right? Put in the work. Right? And always keep him first, because it is his will.
That's right.
It's not our will.
That's right. Beautiful. Thank you so much.